Hello everyone, this is Highlander from MTG Cardsmith doing another custom Magic the Gathering card review. And today we're reviewing another Undertale card by FireOfGolden. Here we have Frisk the Mindless Killer. Oh, just look at how evil this guy is. Just look at him. He's just pouring evil, isn't he? I'm assuming this is an Undertale thing, so I get it. Okay, so we've got this small child who's a mindless killer. This is a 1/1 Mardu, 3 Mardu mana. Nice art, by the way. I like this art. It's not exactly the Magic style, but at least it looks nice. You know, it's. Let me go ahead and pull this guy out again. That's not what you want. That's what you want, right? So that's already an improvement. Okay, so let's see what we got here. LV. Whenever a creature would be dealt damage by this card and dies, put a +1/+1 counter on this card. Okay. Well, that's kind of hard for a 1/1, isn't it? Whenever Frisk would leave the battlefield, return it to the battlefield. Excuse me. Okay. That's interesting. So, is this basically means what? He's indestructible. He can't be dealt with in any way, right? Because he can't leave the battlefield. So, exiling doesn't do it. Destroying doesn't do it. This is like uber indestructible. Can't be returned to hand. Can't change zones. If he's on the battlefield, he's never leaving the battlefield, no matter what the other player does. Okay. Frisk deals damage to target creature equal to its power. Got it. Okay, so he's dealing damage. Okay. All right. Oh boy. Okay. So let's dissect here. Okay, so first, I think we've got a few wording issues. Let's go ahead and deal with those. So again, don't need this comma there. LV, I mean, that's a really weird name for a keyword, especially since, I mean, I'm assuming that has something to do with Undertale. So I'll just give you the benefit of the doubt there. Whenever a creature would be dealt damage by this card and dies, put a +1/+1. So, okay, usually when you say whenever something would be whatever, it's because you are going to be it's because you're writing a replacement effect, right? Kind of like what you're doing here with leaving the battlefield, right? If so, like, you know, you might see something like, if this creature would die, exile it instead, right? That's a replacement effect. Now here, this is not a replacement effect. This is basically saying whenever this guy kills a creature, put a +1/+1 counter on it, right? So that is an existing mechanic we've seen in Magic, so we can figure out exactly how to word that by looking at our good old friend Sengir Vampire. Really old card. Super old card. Look at this guy. Look at those claws. You want to see the original printing? Let's look at the original printing. Oh yeah, look at that. Look at that art. Look at that art. What do you guys think I would rate this card nowadays? I'd be like, what is this? This doesn't look like Magic art. But it is. So yeah, oh, that's kind of cool. This is kind of neat art. I like that. I guess they stuck with this this like opera singer vampire here. Okay, so anyway, whenever a creature dealt damage by Sengir Vampire this turn dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Sengir Vampire. So that's how you want to word that, right? So we're going to say LV. Whenever a creature dealt damage by this card dies this turn. Dealt damage by blah this turn. Okay. Dealt damage by this card this turn dies, put a +1/+1 counter on this So hold on. Whenever a creature dealt damage by this creature, so this turn dies, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Okay. I believe that's how you would word that. Yeah, and so usually, and again, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure this is, Jadefire will know this, but I'm pretty sure that when you are referring to something that's on the battlefield, you refer to it by its permanent name in the card. So here you're saying this card, right? I believe you would need to say this creature here. Now, when a card is in a different zone, you call it then a card. So if you're saying like return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand, right? That's saying card. Or, look at the top X cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card from among them, right? That's when you refer to things as cards. But I believe if something's on the battlefield, it's just its permanent type. So you would just say whenever a creature would be dealt damage by this creature this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Okay? Now, the second line of text. Whenever Frisk would leaves the battlefield, return it to the battlefield. So this is, again, worded as a replacement effect. Okay, I'm going to assume that what you're intending here is that he loses his counters if he would leave the battlefield. I don't know if that's what you're intending. I hope it is. I hope that's what you're intending, because otherwise this card would be bonkers. Okay? But I'm going to assume that's what you're intending. So let's think about how this would work. Okay, whenever Frisk would leave the battlefield. Okay, so I think what you're probably intending to do is something like this. Whenever Frisk would leave the battlefield, this is actually kind of difficult. Whenever Frisk would leave the battlefield, I wanted to say exile it instead, but then I think this thing would trigger again, if I'm not mistaken. So how would I even word this? Whenever Frisk would leave the battlefield, instead remove all counters from it. I guess maybe you would say something like that, right? So I was going to say, whenever Frisk would leave the battlefield, exile it, then return it to the battlefield, at some point. But I think if you do that, that'll cause an infinite loop with this. So I think you basically want to word that like this. Whenever Frisk would leave the battlefield, instead remove all counters from it. Again, that's assuming that that's what you're intending here. If that's not what you're intending, and you literally just want to make this card impossible to deal with, I say poo on you. That's just not, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. We spend the last however many videos talking about hexproof and all these abilities, and this if that was the case, this would be like literally the ultimate defensive ability, where it's like once this it would basically be better than a what's the name of that card? What's the card that gets protection from target player? Protection from target player. Oh, sorry. Protection from that player. Come on. I know you're in here somewhere. Oh, come on. Why? Protection from player. Let's just look for that. Why can't I not remember the name of this card? There we go. True Name Nemesis. That's the one. Okay. True Name Nemesis enters the battlefield. Choose a player. True Name Nemesis has protection from the chosen player. Okay. Nobody likes this card. This card is stupid. Okay? They play it, and if it doesn't get countered, they basically need to either wrath the board or win the game before this 3-mana unblockable card kills you. Okay? Unblockable, unkillable. I guess maybe if it's their only creature, you can make them sacrifice it, but that's basically it. Okay? Now, even True Name Nemesis has a few ways to deal with it. This guy would not. This guy, does not. There's no way to currently remove this card from the battlefield, right? Which, I mean, I personally don't like that on a Magic card. If you're at least removing all counters from this thing, that's at least a start. And then you're having him, you know, bite a creature, deals damage to target creature equal to its power. So yeah, so I mean, I get it, right? Like he starts as a 1/1, and then you know, kill a 1/1, and now he's a 2/2, and then you kill a 2/2, and now he's a 3/3, and then you kill a 3/3, and if they ever kill this guy, it goes back to a 1/1, right? Okay, I guess, you know, before I talk balance, I also need to mention that this ability, I guess, is okay in red. I think we've seen this ability in red before. It's a little iffy. This is usually a green ability, but I think in red it's okay. I mean, these other colors, like, okay, white I get because of +1/+1 counters. I don't really see the black here though. So I guess that's worth considering. Yeah, I mean, you know, I guess my question is, why do you even need this ability if, like, in Commander, you can just recast your commander, you know? I mean, I get that it makes them more expensive, and I get that, like, you know, getting your guy with counters on a bounce kind of sucks, especially if you have to replay him as a 1/1. So I don't hate the idea of having you know, some way to protect this guy, because I mean, paying like Mardu mana for a 1/1 is obviously not a good, you know, that's not good, right? You basically have to like kill 2 things before this sort of becomes a relevant body. But the problem there is, like, this card can just generate so much value. There are going to be some cases where you play this and they don't have anything you can kill. Although, given the way this card works, let's say they attack into you and you, like, block one of their creatures, and then you deal damage and that creature dies because of the block, this thing would still get a counter on it, right? It participated in the dealing of the damage and therefore gets the counter. So I guess getting counters on this thing, and in fact in Commander that's probably pretty easy, right? Because basically if you attack, if somebody attacks any player and any sort of creature dies in combat, you can just ping that creature and you get your counter, right? So if combat happens at all, you're gonna get a counter on this thing. It doesn't have to actually kill things, right? Yeah, I'm finding kind of some issues with this card. This like really scares me. I you know, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this. It's just a lot, you know. It's just a lot. Even with this wording, it's kind of scary because, like, you know, you could put like an aura on this thing, right? And there is no way to deal with it. It's like they play this thing, they put like a flying and lifelink aura with some stat bonus, and like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? You can't do anything. I guess you can kill the aura maybe, but like that's kind of hard to do. And they can just put more on them. I don't know, man. I don't tend to like really powerful defensive abilities like this. So, and I kind of see what you're doing here, right? Like he's leveling up by killing things. And that's fine. Like I would have less of an issue with this card if it didn't have this really powerful defensive ability. If it was like, this guy just can't leave the battlefield, you know? So like maybe what you want on a card like this, something like whenever Frisk, or you'd say like when Frisk dies, exile it, or let's say you may exile it. If you do, return it to the battlefield at the beginning of your next upkeep, something like that. Something like that is a little bit easier to stomach because, first of all, it's only on death, So like, if they, they can still exile it, for example. All right, they can still return it to your hand. But this protects against quite a bit. It protects against other creatures, etc., etc. And it means, it resets the counters. And it gives them a little bit of a window where he's not there, right? So something like, I would prefer to see something like this on it, But as it stands right now, I don't say, like, I get the idea you're going for here, right? And I'm guessing this is like the playable character in the game. So like I get it, you have like leveling up. So he kills things, then he levels up, right? I mean, that makes sense to me. And you might even be able to word this so that like you can't do the thing I mentioned where like you ping a creature that's going to die in combat anyway, even though it's like not even in, even though you're not actually killing it, something else is killing it, you still get the counter. You might be able to like find some sort of wording to make that not happen so that this card actually behaves the way you would like want it to behave, where, you have to kill a 1/1, then you have to kill a 2/2, then you have to kill a 3/3, etc. That I think is I think that's kind of a nice little design. But I just think that this defensive ability is just it's just, I think, too much. So, yeah, I mean, I'll give this one a 3 out of 5. I like the idea behind this card. You're you still have some formatting issues with not using the legendary border, and you've got a comma here, but there's fewer on this card than a lot of the other ones. Although there's grammatical issues, of course. So I'm gonna give this one a 3 out of 5 for the idea. Like, I like the idea here, but I think the execution's like, there's just a couple like little issues with this card. I mean, I think this is a big issue personally. But I think if you modify that, you're kind of getting to a place where this could be an interesting card, I think. So yeah, this was kind of a hard one to rate, honestly, because I mean, it is a 3-mana. It's a Mardu 1/1, which is like, obviously not good. And it grows pretty slowly, right? It's like once a turn, +1/+1 per turn. So, it's just, I don't know. I'm afraid of something that just can never leave the battlefield. That to me, that's just kind of asking for trouble. So I think that's really my main gripe with this card. The other stuff I think is actually pretty reasonable. It's just this is like meh. So yeah, so I'll give this one a 3 out of 5. And that's my review of Frisk the Mindless Killer. Thank you guys for watching.